Hi everybody, it's Alyce-Kay Ruckelshaus from Threshold of Hineni, back with the Frankenpaper that we had started when my bobbin thread ran out. And this is just kind of a mix match of mostly pastel, but there is some bright stuff. Mostly pastel papers that are left from various journals that I've made recently. Well, some of them not so recently, but mostly recently. And just continuing on, right now what we're doing is we're just covering up the paper that I had, and especially working on the edges, on just getting something down on the edges. So, and my bobbin ran out, so we decided it was a good place to stop at that point. So I was thinking while I was filling my bobbin, because I was saying I haven't cleaned up my crafting area for a long time, and so now it's just really gotten out of hand. It's really seriously bad. I was thinking what I should do is just divide it into different categories and do one like each week, or each day would be awesome, but I know that's not going to happen. But maybe like each Saturday or something, I can do something like I was thinking today. What I might do is just go around and pick up all the pieces of paper that I have all over the place. It's more like not pieces, it's stacks of paper. and and put those, like if they're little scraps or things that are misprinted that I want to use for Frankenpaper, I could put those into bins. I have little shoebox bins like this. I have a whole bunch of them, and I can divide them into things like different, like pastels or bright colors or earth tones or purples if I have a lot of purple or something, so that they're all ready to make some Frankenpaper. And then the things that are good, I can divide those up into like potential journals and put those, into, I have a bunch of big plastic envelopes that are they're a little bit bigger than 8.5 by 11, and those are really good for storing either categories of paper like sheet music, or paper that would be good for making one or two journals. And so I think that's what I'm going to do, is try to organize myself that way, so that, because the mess is just really starting to drive me nuts. And I'm running out of room to work on my desk here because I have too much stuff at hand, and I really just like to keep at hand whatever I need for the journal I'm working on, and especially for things that I'm recording for you all. So right now what I'm doing is I haven't finished all of the edges, but I'm adding patches to places where there are too many unbroken straight lines. Okay, like, this is a square or rectangular piece, so this is all straight. I don't want a bunch of straight stuff. I don't mind some, but it's like too much. So I'm just kind of putting scraps in to break that up. Or like right here, there's that straight edge. So I'm gonna sew some fabric, some paper in there to kind of break that up. Okay, and then I'm going to hunt for some big pieces to use along the edges. I've got an edge here that needs to be covered, and some edge space here that needs to be covered as well. So let's look for some pieces that we can put in there, preferably stuff that doesn't have like a real straight edge. Oh, here's some Frankenpaper that I had cut up other things for, and then this was left, so I can use this on here as well. Not probably as a whole piece, but I can cut it up into smaller pieces, and that's kind of cool. This looks like it was from one of my, looks like mainly it was from an Abraham journal when I was making my Abraham journal. Okay, so that's kind of nice to have that. In fact, how about if we use that right there along the edge? Okay, it does have kind of straight lines, but it's, and look at, see how I've got the contrasting thread there? I like that too. Sometimes I use contrasting thread, and sometimes I use just, whatever thread usually I use whatever thread I have in my bobbin, in my machine. And sometimes it's contrasting and sometimes it's not. And that's fine. It just, for me, I just randomly use it. But, I could see myself sometime potentially deciding I really want this one to have contrast. And so, maybe I would use something that's more contrasting on it. That's cool. See, so even the scraps of Frankenpaper that I have, when I make it into various things like pockets or cards and stuff, don't throw those away. Just reuse them on another piece of Frankenpaper. Because look at that, you've already got some of your work cut out for you, and it, with that stitching, it looks really cool on this where the rest of it is, not contrasting stitching like that. Okay, so I'm going to put this here. And I'm not sewing on the edge of the paper yet. The edge of the big piece of paper is going to get sewn all at one time at the very, very end after I ink it up. So I want to ink all the edge of the entire piece. So how do you use Frankenpaper? I'll share some of the ways that I use it, but I would love to hear your ideas. If you have ways that you use it that I don't, or even if your ways are the same way, just mention that in the comments below, and we can give each other ideas. But the way that I use it is I usually, in most of my journals, there will be a couple of Frankenpaper belly bands, and made from paper from that journal. Usually, I like to use the paper from the journal because it's obviously going to coordinate really nicely. And so, so that's a perfect way to use it. I might also cut some up, like I'll cut up this sheet into belly bands, pockets. You could make a cover out of it. Journaling cards. Now for journaling cards, just a second and I'll show you what the back of this looks like. Okay, so, all right, so on this back, I have something printed already on it. But a lot of times if you use something that's just plain white, you would think that would be great for the back of a journaling card, but you've got all this stitching all over it, and there's going to be even more than this, and that would be really hard to write on. So what I do is I either print out something that's relatively plain, or I use some coffee dyed paper, or some lined paper, and I sew that onto the back of this before I cut it into cards, so that it'll make good journaling cards. Okay, all right, so I have some paper here that I had taken some notes on, and so I'm going to include that. I don't want to cover up too much of that music. I really like the music. I like the music itself, and I like the design that I had printed on it. I don't want to cover it too much. Personally, I like to have a variety of pieces on my Frankenpaper. I like to have some writing, some music if possible, if I have some music scraps. Some pieces that are plain but colored, but usually they have some kind of texture in them, like this blue stuff. I would consider that a plain piece, but it's got texture in it. And same thing with this green, it's got texture in it. So I don't really like to have like plain paper on it, but maybe like little tiny scraps or something. Here's some coffee dyed paper, so that's really nice to have a little scrap of coffee dyed paper in there. And I have all different weights of paper in here. I have cardstock, I have really thin paper, I have paper that's like 24 pound, so it's a little bit thicker than copy paper, just all kinds of stuff. And I'm going to be adding lace and fabric and yarn to it by the time that I finish up too, so it'll just have a real variety of textures in it, and that's what I'm going for, is a variety of textures as well as a variety of colors. Okay, so I want to show you something. So I've got just a little tiny bit of white peeking through there. Can you see that? Okay, I could take a little piece and cover it, or I can just leave it, and when I ink it, I'll just make sure that I ink that part really well. Okay, oh, I was going to keep those roses showing, but I guess without thinking, I covered them up, so that's okay. All right, and I saw a white spot that needs to be, oh, right there. Let's cover that up. Don't want to have anything that's white or even relatively white and blank showing. So another thing that you can do if you have some pieces that aren't particularly interesting, but you do like the color, is you can use a sticker on them. And, you know, you don't have to be real picky about the sticker. You can just, because you're going to cover up parts of it. But see there how I stamped on that? So that just adds a little bit of interest to it. There's probably still some ink on here, so I'm going to stamp someplace else. And it doesn't matter that it doesn't all come out perfectly or anything. Set that aside so that I can wash it off. But stencils, same thing. You can stencil. Okay, so I think that I've got the background pretty much covered. So I have a lot of this right here, so I want to look for some small pieces that can go in there before I start putting on fabric. Just looking for some things that are kind of interesting. I've got this blue, and then I've got this that's kind of contrasting. I recognize those from Pixel Scrapper. I love Pixel Scrapper, you guys. Ooh. Yes, yes, yes. If you haven't discovered Pixel Scrapper yet, check my link that I have down below. They are coming up with new stuff all the time. Really beautiful. And I just, you know, like if I'm doing a journal that I'm using a DigiKit that's mostly like brown and pink, like the Chit Chat Angels that I did, I'll just go to Pixel Scrapper and I will enter in the search bar, I'll enter pink and brown paper. You know, that way I get like background type paper and stuff. Or if I'm looking specifically for something like pumpkins or angels or whatever, you just enter it in and it's wonderful. They're very, very well organized, really good quality stuff. I really, really enjoy Pixel Scrapper. And it's kind of a community too. It's kind of fun. You start getting to know different people that are on there either as contributors or just, you know, chit-chatting. I met somebody who lives like within an hour of me, and I think it'd be fun if maybe someday we get together for coffee or something. I'll probably, actually more likely, meet her on a retreat because she had seen some of my other videos and mentioned to me that she used to work for Precepts Ministries, and I was reviewing one of their Bibles and suggested that I come to one of their retreats because they're only an hour away from me. So that'd be kind of fun. So it's like, yeah, I mean, it's a place where you can make friends as well as, you know, find stuff that you're looking for decorating and stuff. I don't want to have two pieces that are the same right next to each other like that. Let's see what do I have that's different. Got some of this pink. That's cool. Not sure what that's from. Okay, so we're almost to the place where we're ready to add some lace. I just don't want it to be, I know I'm covering up the piece of writing that I had there, but that's okay. I just don't want it to be so blank. Okay, I still have a few large areas that I want to cover. How am I doing time-wise? Oh, 14, yeah, we're fine. Okay, so, here's some from the journal that I made for my mom. She loves purple, so for Mother's Day I made her a purple journal. That was fun. For my background, sometimes I buy pads of paper. Other times I print stuff off of like Pixel Scrapper, Pixabay for my papers. I get DigiKits. Some of my favorite DigiKits are from Melody Huey, from Penny Whittemore, from Lindsay Zener, oh, and from, oh dear, can't remember her name. Anyway, I'll link those below. I'll link some of my favorite digital artists below so that you can check them out. I like DigiKits because somebody's gone to the work of putting all that together, and it's all coordinated and everything. But I do find that most DigiKits don't have everything that I want in them, and so I'm probably going to look for other stuff to supplement what they've got, and that's fine. That helps make what I'm making with it different from what somebody else might make. And the thing with DigiKits, you guys, it's really fun because everybody uses them in different ways. So you might use the same DigiKit that 100 other people are using, but your project is going to turn out differently from anyone else's. Okay, so we're almost to the point where we can start adding some fabric and thread and stuff. I just want to get some of this covered a little bit more before we do that. Okay, now you'll notice that I'm not making sure that all my edges are down yet, and that's because I'm going to be adding some fabric and stuff, and so I don't want everything covered up yet. Oh, look, this piece of Frankenpaper that I'm reusing actually has a little bit of fabric on it. That's kind of fun. So I'm just sewing these down enough to hold them in place is all that I'm looking for right now. Okay, I think that's good for a background. That's really good, I think. Okay, so I don't see like any white spaces or anything. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of dig through and find some of the pieces of fabric or some of the really thin pieces of paper, and see what I can use from that. I've got lace in here. I want to grab some of that. Oh, here's a little tiny piece of ribbon, pink ribbon that has gold on it. What else do I have? Oh, here's some of my husband's yarn, some blue lace. See, all those things just make it really interesting. Even like little tiny pieces of lace that you cut off the edge of something, I keep those because those are great on Frankenpaper. They're just wonderful. I thought I saw some more blue lace, and I kind of want more than just one piece of blue lace on here. Oh, here's some corrugated cardboard. That would be really nice. That adds a lot of cool texture. Oh, print from a sari. Oh, here's some more of that blue lace. Oh, and some stamps. Those could be really fun. I think I'll save those for a different one, though. Okay, there's some more Frankenpaper scraps. Wow, I have a lot of Frankenpaper scraps in here. It's really fun what you discover when you're doing this. Oh, here's some purple ribbon. Okay, so that's going to be really nice. All right, so those will add some nice little bits of interest to it. I think, let's see, let's put this right here. That'll break that up just a little bit more. Oh, and I see another piece that kind of needs to be broken up, so this piece has more straight edges than what I usually like to do, but that's okay. Every piece of Frankenpaper can be different, and you don't have to make all of your Frankenpaper the same, obviously. Okay, so let's put some of this here. And again, I'm not going to sew along the edge of the paper because I'm going to do that at the end. But at this point, I am starting to sew more of my edges down. Not all of them yet, but more of them. Okay. This, I've got a little bit too much there too, so let's put just a little bit more of this sari paper there, and that adds a different color as well. It gives us some orange to go in there. Good. And let's do the other side as well. That's a really pretty piece of paper. I know that that's from Pixabay. I think if you go to Pixabay, which I will link below, and you put in Sari, S-A-R-I, you should be able to find that piece of paper. Maybe even put in Sari orange. Oops. Okay, well I just turned a corner there. Turned a corner up. See that right there? Okay, so I'll just make sure that I put something on top of it. That's not a big deal. So I've got some corrugated cardboard here, which makes for some really nice texture. Let's go ahead and do that so I don't forget about covering up that corner that I turned up. And I'm going to sew this down. I'm going to sew all the way around this piece, because I'm not going to put anything on top of the corrugated cardboard. It's just ready to go down. I love that texture that it adds to it. It just adds a nice bit of interest to it. Really nice. Okay, there we go. And I'm going to go ahead and sew down these edges right here. So all the way around here. I just need to do that. Okay, like I said, I'm just like starting to get to the point where I'm sewing down edges. You do want to make sure that by the time that you finish your piece of Frankenpaper that you have sewn down every single edge because of paper. Don't worry so much about fabric. Fabric's not going to tear, but paper will tear if something gets caught on it. So you do want to sew all those edges down once you've got, you know, pretty much all your paper on there. You can still add paper after you've sewn all your edges down. You can always add paper. You can come back a month later and add paper. And in fact, when I make these into journal cards, I will usually on the journal card I'll add, okay, I want to tear that off right there, or cut it I guess because it's pretty heavy. I will usually add something as a focal point, like maybe like some Tim Holtz butterflies or a stamp or a stencil or something, but something to bring a focal point to it. And I'll also ink around all the edges. And if you cut up your Frankenpaper into cards or something, you want to make sure that you sew all the way around the edges of each of those cards, because of course even though you've sewn down the edges of your paper on this, you're going to be cutting into the middle of some of those papers and the middle won't be sewn down. So you do want to make sure that you sew all those down. Okay, so let me just get, I'm just sewing down edges right now. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's add some more corrugated cardboard. I have some over here, so I'm going to want to have this in like maybe 3 different places. I try to go for an odd number, and I try to, like, I've got one that's kind of close to that edge, so I'm going to have one that's kind of close to this edge, and then one that's like about halfway in between. I don't try to make it exact. You want it to look random. But you want it to look random, but you want it to look balanced. Does that make sense? And don't spend a lot of time thinking about it. This is a creative side of your brain exercise. So just kind of go with what your gut tells you. And just put stuff down. Okay, I've got some, oh yeah, I want to do the other piece of corrugated cardboard. Okay, so I'm going to make that, I think I'll put that right here. So it's going to cover a little bit of the hem, but it's kind of covering where there isn't any like music or anything on it that's particularly interesting. So it's a great way to cover up just a little bit of blank space. Okay, I'll turn this so I can get to this side of the corrugated paper, corrugated cardboard. I mean, when I get junk mail, I look at it and I say, oh, would this make a neat, would this be a neat element to have in Frankenpaper? I used, like about a month ago, I had gotten so many Chinese takeout menus in the mail that I just took a Chinese takeout menu and tore it up and made it into Frankenpaper. It's one of my favorite pieces of Frankenpaper. It's very cool. It's just funny that, you know, anything can be made into Frankenpaper. If you've got old maps or something, oh my word, I love the look of maps as an element in Frankenpaper. I have not made one that's all from maps. I think that might be a little bit too much. But I've used pieces of maps that I've used in a journal, and I have scraps of it. I've used those pieces on Frankenpaper, and I think that they add a lot of interest. I think it's really pretty. So right now I'm just like sewing down edges that I'm finding, edges of paper that just need to be sewn down so that they're not going to stick up and so that they don't get torn. And I see a place that I need to add some fabric to, and I'll show you why I think I need fabric there, fabric or lace or something. Okay, so see right here where I tore this paper, there's a big white area. It's okay that it's white over here on the edge because that's going to get inked, but this isn't. So I'm going to cover that with some lace just so it doesn't look so white. There we go. And I'm going to stitch right there where that white is. I'm not going to stitch all the way around that piece of lace. I'm going to let it stick up, but I'm going to stitch right where the white is so it doesn't come up from there. Okay. And I see some more edges that I need to sew down. And again, I'm not sewing the edge of the paper, of the whole big paper. I'm just sewing edges of the elements that I've put onto it. Okay, here's some more. So little by little, it's all getting sewn down. And it takes me, roughly an hour to sew, to make a whole piece of Frankenpaper. Oh, we're getting close here. Okay, if this gets turned off, if my camera goes off in the middle of this, I'm not going to turn it back on. So I'll just tell you what I'm going to do is right now I'm going to go around and I'm going to put fabric on different places. But when I'm done with that, I will ink all the way around the edge of this whole thing, and then I'll zigzag all the way around to the edge. Okay, so pieces of fabric, I don't necessarily sew all the way around the outside. I just kind of zigzag through the piece of fabric so that it can kind of be turned up and everything. I don't worry about that. Now with the paper, this is a thin strip of paper. I'm just going to put it like this, and I'm going to just zigzag all the way on that whole thing because the zigzag will cover, both sides of it. Let's sew this music down first. What I see is loose. Okay. I love to have music on my Frankenpaper. I like to have music all throughout my journals because it's pretty and it looks different from any other parts. Okay, so I want to show you something after I sew down this piece of this thin strip of paper. And some of them I'll use quite a few of these thin strips. Okay. All right, so see how I did this? I went through, here's a piece of paper that was fairly plain, so I wanted to cut that up. Same thing, right here and with this blue and with this green. So I used that to cut quite a bit of stuff, but since it's long and thin, it doesn't look like you've got a big block of something there. So here's this little tiny piece of lace. Let's go ahead and let's put that on here. I don't want to put it like right in the middle, but I'm going to use it to break that piece of blue up a little bit. Okay. And I just sewed right down the middle of it. There it is, right there. Where are my fabric scissors? Okay, I'm going to chop up this strip of fabric here and use it on some places that need a little bit more interest. Right here. Now I don't want it to be parallel to the edge of the paper, so I'm going to... Oh, and sometimes what I do too is I'll even like twist a piece of fabric like that too, which kind of makes it really neat. I'll do that in a moment. I see some edges here that need to be sewn down. So let me take care of those real quick. But, when you're using fabric, when you're adding fabric to it, what you're doing is you're trying to add some more texture and character. So you can see how this is it's already kind of wadded up anyway. So I'm going to twist that, kind of twist it like this. And then I'll put it down, how about here? Oh, it's even got some yarn attached to it, so I'm going to sew over that, a little bit of that yarn, but I'll leave a lot of that yarn sticking out. And so it's almost like a piece of ribbon. See, here's that fabric that I twisted, and there's the yarn sticking out from it that I sewed down on there. Here's a loose piece of paper that needs to be sewn down, in fact, a couple of them. It's just a really relaxing thing to do, I think. Now, if you don't like making Frankenpaper, but you want some, I do have it in my shop. And I also, like I said, I have so many scraps of paper, and I try to store them categorized. So if you have, you know, a certain color scheme that you're working with and you don't see that in my shop for Frankenpaper, let me know and I can probably make some for you in that color scheme. Okay, so let's get this down here.